a competition, and in a time where competing in drag is so like fraught, like because you have the idea of Drag Race, which has so many positives and so many negatives, and then you have the way that has influenced drag competition in general and pageantry and the competitive and singular nature of drag. You guys took that and then removed almost all of like the bad stuff and the pressure and inserted fun and dumbness and stupidity, and it just worked so well. Like, you guys have a sense of silliness going into it that I feel like we went from drag is fierce and fun and silly to a very, very serious point with it, where it means a lot to people and everybody feels like they need to judge drag, and then you guys stepped it back to this silly place that I think like really speaks to the spirit of drag in its like randomness and fun.
It's so arbitrary. I mean, that's we try to drive that point home with Turbo Pageant. Is like, we have 4 ways to move on to the next round: judges' choice, tips, audience vote. Like, I mean, it's so arbitrary. Like, one of the cycles I was trying to pitch to Nikki, I'm like, what if the 4th way to move on is a criteria that we draw out of a hat each time? Like, who is the first queen to send in their music? Like, they move on to the next round. Like, who was
that's
like
evil. I
like
love
whoever
it,
was
though.
whoever was the 4th queen to perform tonight, like, you know, they move on to the next, like, totally arbitrary. Because that's
so
the thing
fun.
with competition. And I really want to drive that point with competitions. It's like, there's some weeks when me and Nikki are like, yes, these are the 4 people we wanted to move on. There's some weeks where we're like, how the fuck did these people move on? It doesn't fucking matter, you know? Like, and like, sure, like, that's not to say that competitions are not fun to bring your A game, but that's what I like about the competitions, is that they force you to bring out your best.
Yes.
But then what we want to stress is that like the outcomes are less important.
I think yes, your guys' mindset on that is literally like the antidote to some of the negative things that have come along from the way that the drag scene has changed, and the way that things that have always been wrong with like competing and simply the act of like pitting queer people against each other, which, like, as you said, like, competition is fun, bringing out your A game is awesome, and like being able to use competitions to uplift one another is amazing. But like, you guys really found the medicine for like a lot of the cattiness and the negative aspects of it, like, because like I said, we are starting to take drag more and more seriously every year. It's approaching this level of professionalism that's awesome for the queer community, period. But it's like, we need these oases of just silly, dumb, random, off the wall drag where you can do anything you want. Because it's like, I come around submitting extremely earnest musical theater numbers and it still works. And it's like, that freedom
totally
is so necessary, and when you lose it, that's where problems start to crop up.
Exactly. And I think it helps too that Nikki and I's taste in drag is very diverse, you know. Like, we don't just like funny numbers, we don't just like dancing numbers, we don't just like musical theater, like we just like what entertains us. And I think having people like me and Nikki judging this, where it's like, we're not gonna put people at a disadvantage just because of the style of drag that they do.
Yes. And that is the nature of so
helps.
much drag competition right now, where it's like the end result is to fit a particular image, instead of bringing in a bunch of diverse performers and really kind of considering who's doing what and how well. It's very much like, who can fit into this lovely little Barbie box that we've created. Right. And you guys have taken that away. I am like, Turbo Pageant has come up on all 5 or 6 like recorded episodes at this point, so the audience is sick and tired of it, but I will never stop preaching about how important that is. And like, when I don't know, like, I may come across bitter. I often come across bitter, but it's like, I have been through quite a few negative experiences that I've had to weigh against my, of course, extremely positive experiences within my own drag community. And when I see something that is completely positive and is that positive experience that I get to take away and be like, drag is cool, you should do it. I can't stop celebrating it, because it's like that's what got me into it. And that's what will hopefully, like, that's the spirit that will carry on into drag culture in the future. Because in 20 years, I want to see more things like Turbo Pageant and less things like, sorry, Trax's Ultimate Queen competition based out of Denver, Colorado.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm going to be canceled. I do not like but I also have like 14 other people on that cast that can attest like we could have had more fun with it.
Sure. I mean,
Exactly.
totally. And I mean, shameless plug as well for actually starting in the new year, where Turbo Pageant we're going into our second foray, our second show.
Hell
Um,
yes.
where because Nikki can't commit to doing it more than every other week, and so I've been trying to think like, what can we do to fill in these other Tuesdays?
Mm-hmm.
And so Vivienne Forevermore, who I don't know if you know Vivi, but she's one of my drag moms, and she has guest hosted a lot of the in-person Turbo Pageants when Nikki's out of town. We're gonna start doing a Family Feud parody that
Oh,
we're gonna
fun.
call Chosen Family Feud. Um,
Oh, I like this.
and it's gonna have some tie-ins to Turbo, where a lot of the Turbo family will come back in for that. But that's gonna be our attempt to engage people in the queer community who aren't necessarily performers, and
Yes.
really like keep some of these people who are tuning into every stream. How do we find ways to engage them as equal and valid members of this community too? So
Yeah.
I love the format of games and competitions because they bring out this other side of ourselves that maybe we weren't going to explore otherwise. And yeah, like what you were saying earlier, if we can just remove that, like the catty side of things, and just
Mm-hmm.
have the play side of things in there, I
Mm-hmm.
think there's some beautiful things that can happen. So I personally will always be drawn towards this like game show format.
Yeah, well, because it's endless energy. It's like there's
Hmm.
always something to do. There's always a task, and it's like having someone to beat. Of course, is always it's gonna bring out the
It's a
best
little
in people.
motivation. Yeah.
So you have to soften it by being that by being the Steve Harvey and bringing and making it ridiculous. Not to, I mean, he has his
Absurd.
own
If it's
set.
absurd, how could yeah.
Exactly. Bring the absurdity to it, but a little bit of you guys are the new Dadaists of drag.
I mean, I love that. Absurdism is a huge influence in everything that I do. So thank
Yes.
you.
Absolutely. So is that so the Chosen Family feud, is that going to be interspersed in January with the new All-Stars sort of turbo situation?
Yes. Our
Yes.
Nikki wants to call it the comeback cycle. I want to call it Turbo
The
Pageant Revenge. Uh,
Revenge. Me and Pastiche were thinking about it, and we were like, okay, Turbo Pageant two to Turbo to Pageant. We were throwing around some horrible ideas. I like Revenge. I keep using All Stars just for the ease of it, and so that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
when I say it to my mom, she understands
Totally. And
what it
it's
means.
it's funny because All Stars is such a like because technically every cycle's All Stars because we have people at this point who come back every single cycle.
Right.
Like
No, I
we have repeat.
considered
Yeah.
reapplying on multiple occasions, but it was the invite that got me in.
Oh well, you know.
So, I would like to have you and Nikki on as a duo.
Oh my gosh, that would be
In
so much
the
fun.
future, possibly as like a recap on the season of Turbo Pageant.
Sure.
It could either be a winner's circle speaking with the newest winner of Turbo Pageant,
Ah!
or it can be me interrogating you two about why the fuck I did not win Turbo Pageant. I think either way, it'll turn out really, really fun. But I want you to know that the invitation to return to this podcast
Oh,
is
I would love to.
wide
This has been
open.
such a fun conversation.
I'm so glad. Yes, I get to the end of these and I wonder, was I incredibly rude or like or prying or investigative or far too formal? And so I always appreciate knowing that things
I
went relatively well.
I think that that a conversation goes well when you leave the conversation being like, but there were like 500 other things I wanted to talk about.
Exactly. So everybody stay tuned. Look out for Florida's name on that future episode list because it will be coming. And I know that my both of the episodes with you and Nikki turned out surprisingly serious, but I have a feeling that having both of you in the room is going to
Oh, that
make
will not be
this
serious at all.
it'll be a disaster. So I really really heavily look forward to that. While we're wrapping up the pod, where can our followers find you on social media? What social media are you interested in being engaged on at this point? And are
You
there
can't find me on
any
Twitter.
exactly? And are there any projects or things that you would like to plug on your own behalf or on other people's behalves? What are your parting shots for the listeners?
Absolutely. Well, my name in Drag It's Florida Man. You can find me on Instagram at Florida Maniac. And generally on most social media, I'm either going to be Florida Maniac or Florida Manly. Check it out. In particular, the best thing that you can do is tune in to twitch.tv/studsf, this historic queer bar that I'm surprised actually didn't get brought up here at all. But
yeah. Well, we talked about it in the Nikki episode, and I would love
Great.
to get more into it when we're all together.
And just subscribe and tune into all the amazing shows there. We've got Turbo Pageant is on there. Our Chosen Family Feud will be on there. Nikki's show Reparations is on there. You know, that's where you can really get a taste of the projects that I'm pouring a lot of energy into, but maybe not pouring my energy into promoting these days.
Yes. So I will use this podcast to promote it. Everybody, check those out. Go do it. Make sure that you are tuning in, even if you have to leave it running while you are making dinner or something. Come back, send somebody a tip, just show up and show your support, because putting a little number on the viewership and sharing an Instagram story is way easier than physically showing up to a bar and sitting in a seat and staying there all night. So you have no excuse. Florida Man, thank you so much for being on my podcast. This was really,
thank
really
you so much.
And we are going to now transition into my little outro. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's episode, hopefully episodes, of Black and White. This is your weekly reminder to please rate, and subscribe, and leave a positive review. It does a huge amount to help out small podcasts like this and get it in front of more people's ears. At the same time, you can go and check out a bunch of my work at deon.wtf. That's deon.wtf. I've got my drag listed there, some examples of my wig styling. You can commission a wig, all sorts of fun stuff you can do there. You can subscribe to my Substack newsletter or go straight to imdeon.substack.com. That's imdeon.substack.com. If you become a paying subscriber of that, you're helping support my work as well as making a donation to Urban Peak, which is a charity here in Denver which goes to provide resources and services for homeless and at-risk youth here in Denver. So I would super appreciate it if you subscribe to that as well. And plus, you get some of my writing and visual art in your email every other week. I will not be adding a little musical outro to this episode, so you're going to have to tune in next week to hear the sweet sounds of my sultry, savory voice. That was so stupid. But yeah, not singing for you guys this time around, and hopefully I will talk to you all Monday. This podcast is produced by me, Dion, all by myself. Oh God, please help me, it hurts. And the theme is Mama Look a Boo Boo by Harry Belafonte. Please don't sue me.